Welcome back. It is me. It is the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios, and I know you are all here for another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour. As you all know, we are everywhere: LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, you name it. If I can go live, I'm live. I'm even live on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it right now. So enjoy the show. We got a lot of things planned, and honestly, if you want to donate at all, help the show out, help us keep growing and doing bigger and better things, please do. The best place to do that, as always, is on YouTube through Super Chats, tips, and all those other things. Or you can head to cyberwarriorstudios.com and check out all the ways you can support there. Now, saying that, give me about 10 seconds, and I promise we're going to be right back. And we're back. And like I said, my name is the Cyber Warrior. I am the host and founder of Cyber Warrior Studios and of Security Happy Hour. With me this evening, I have the one, the only, Tim Miller. And we got a lot of things to talk about compliance and about NIST and so many other great things. We got a lot of GRC people that love this show. So it's awesome to have you on, Tim. How you doing this evening?
Yeah, we're doing good. After a long week of all these new changes coming to a new year, you know, it's good to settle back and actually just have a relaxing chat with you on this Good Friday night.
I mean, I'm usually pretty energetic, so I don't know how relaxed you're going to be, but we'll see what we can do for you this evening. But, you know, first and foremost, I don't know who all knows you. I know in the chat we got a bunch of people that usually show up. So, you know, let's start off with, you know, kind of how you got into cybersecurity, just real down and dirty, like what got you into the realm of GRC and cyber?
You know, it actually goes back when I was in the military. This is like in the Stone Age back in the 80s. I was the part of a team that was we were doing protection for the nuclear facilities. And, you know, seeing back then how they were protecting some of the lower tech stuff that we would think of these days. But you know, I kind of got the bug on it. And then when I went to work for IBM out of that, that's where I really got a deep dive. Started seeing how organizations can be impacted just by simple code problems, stuff like that. And I've always been a sleuth, somebody who wants to likes all the Tom Clancy and all the whodunit kind of things. So a lot of it is I want to be the one to go find the guy that is sitting in some bunker in Russia that's been like hacking everything, you know. So yeah, but that's what got me stuck on this, and it really got me more from looking at it as from the compliance side. So the compliance side of the world is what drives all of it. And so I found my niche in that about 26 years ago, and started working with the organizations, working with ISO and some of the others that were coming out of that and developing standards. And I got the bug and just couldn't get rid of it.
Yeah, I know that feeling because, like, even myself, I started, you know, I was born in the 80s. So while you were in the military, my dad was in the military, I was actually born. And, you know, so I came up around computers and, you know, started fixing them, repairing them. So I learned the underlying IT side and eventually, you know, delved into cybersecurity and things like that. So I really understand you just kind of get something ingrained in you that's just like, you know what, this is what I want to do. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. I don't know if it's actually going to take off, but I love this. This is what I want to do. We're going to go with it.
You know, it's a cool thing. My son was born in '87.
Hey, me too. I just turned 37 on Monday. So, you know, there it is. This is my birthday week. Look, not a lot of people take PTO these days, especially in this career field. I will say this before we get into like full in depth of the show. Take your PTO, right? Mental health is important. When you take PTO, turn off notifications for work, literally cut yourself off. I have been very limited on social media this week. I've done nothing for work. Literally, I haven't checked Teams, nothing. This is my PTO. This was my birthday week. I was taking off and no one was messing with me. And I've been good at it so far. Mm-hmm. It's been a learning process since leaving the Army, but been good at it so far. and I got to say, it's been relaxing. even with the honey-do list and things I got to do around the house, it's been a relaxing week, even with everything else going on. And take your PTO, take that time for yourself. It's much needed.
So you'll like this. At any time, I think I've taken actual PTO twice in the past 10 years. That there is always something that has happened during my PTO that I'm called up to go and deal with. So I had this past time, the wife actually took my laptop, my cell phone, my watch, everything, and she put it in a safe and left it at the house. And she gave me a burner phone and said, the only people who know this number are my mother and your son. So
Nice.
Nobody's going to be calling us. And I'm like, well, what if something happens? They'll let us know. No. I mean, at work. He said, they'll deal with it.
Yep.
Well, okay. That's good for me.
And I mean, really, the way you got to look at it is this, especially, you know, as you get further along in your career, you end up in senior roles, management roles, director roles. If you're in those roles and you can't take a week off, you're doing your job wrong. You're able to succeed without you. And if they can't, you're doing your job wrong. That's the way I look at it. I finally hit management early last year, actually coming up on a year, I think in like March or April. I never wanted to be a manager, but now that I am, I've slowly realized, like, if I can't rely on my people, then I screwed up. I am doing something wrong as a leader, that I can't rely on my people that I work with. So again,
here's
I had to get that off my chest because too many people don't, especially in this field. I've always been afraid of taking off, but take it and use it. Kill notifications, kill everything. Like, take that time for yourself, or you're going to burn yourself out.
You know, a very wise man once said that, and he was one of the directors for one of the labs in IBM that I worked with. He said that he surrounds himself so that he is the dumbest person in the room.
Yes.
And his job is to make sure that he continues to hire individuals who are much smarter than he is.
That is what you should do.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, but the problem is I get in the struggle of trying to make sure we still have value. So if I hire too many people who are smarter than me, oh well, we'll deal with it. But hey, I got a thing for you. So you and my son were born at the same time. My son, considering I was working at IBM at the time, he let's just say he was thrown into computers when he was like at about 3 or 4. And so here he is at 5, I think 5.5, not quite 6, with his little Cub Scout troop at our house. And I'm like, okay, guys, here's the thing. You guys are way too ADHD for me, so we're gonna settle this down a bit. I brought out 2 8088s. And so for the older people in the room, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For the younger people in the room, they'll be going, huh? But basically, this is like Gen 1 of IBM PC.
Yep.
So I bring this thing out, and this
5 meg hard drives.
Oh yeah, the giant NFM hard drives and everything else. And so I bring it out, and I give each one of them a screwdriver, and I say, "Here's what I want to have happen. I want every single thing in these taken apart, the whole thing." And they looked at me like I had just smoked a giant line of crack. And it's like, I'm like, dudes, go after it. And they literally separated every screw, every bolt, they took the entire system board apart, everything in this thing was laying out. And when the parents came to pick them up, they're like looking at all these kids like focused around these tables, taking this thing apart. He says, "Are you okay with that?" I'm like, "What, are you kidding me? They've been quiet for like 20 minutes. So but again, that was his first foray into the world of security. Yep. Because 5 years later, he's writing code on his machine, and he's like, I'm getting an interrupt problem. And unlike most people, I don't know what that is, take it into Best Buy or something like that. He's literally taken his entire machine apart, found out he had a bad board on his sound card, came into my office, said, "Dad, I need another one of these." So, but again, that was his driver. And then when he went into the Army, he when he got out, he was getting his degree in cybersecurity. So
they didn't have those when I was in, even when I got my degree. So like I graduated in 2009. There was no cybersecurity degree at the schools I went to. I got computer information systems was the extent of it.
Well, see, he actually did that. He was doing patient administration. He did that. And then about 3 years ago, they opened up the class for cybersecurity.
Nice.
And so he went and jumped on that. And then he's actually done an internship with my firm, which was a lot of fun for them because ours is drastically different than a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because we actually throw them into the lion's den.
Yeah.
They're literally thrown on a live project of something that's going on and said, fix it. Or we're giving them an opportunity if they're going for their CEH. Hey, you know what? You need to be able to hack into these systems. So make it happen.
Yep.
And they have a blast with this, and they come at it as and we actually hire a whole bunch of the interns at the end of it. So it's definitely a lot of cool stuff getting into that.
So we talk a lot about the tech side, and that's very prevalent in cybersecurity, right? Not always, but a lot of people get into it from the technical aspect, whether it's hacking or defense or just IT in general, system administration, into analyst, whatever the case may be. But you have been more governance. I mean, you're the lead compliance officer at Morgan Franklin, and so NIST coming out. NIST has been around for a hot minute. And then you also have like the CIS benchmarks. Like there's so many different frameworks and ways that you can secure an organization. But this NIST Rev 3 is going to kind of change the game a little bit. What is your take for people getting into the industry? What is your take on that?
Well, the interesting thing is that what NIST, and I'm on I've been working with NIST for a while. I've been on several committees. I've actually written some of the controls. Right now, I do reviews for the controls when they go to get released. So I get like early access into these things. So I do it because that's what my way of giving back to the industry. So it's a win-win. But the Rev 3, one of the things that is most unique about it is the goal of what they were attempting to do. The attempt was to try and make it so that the new language was encompassing more of the alignment with the 853 Bravo. And so when you're looking at that, it's like, okay, now that's kind of making sense what they're doing. But that alignment that they're doing is for the moderate baseline control. So they're looking at being able to build that into that. So when I'm looking at these streamlines and everything else that are going in these implementations, a lot of people looked at it and just said, okay, well, here's the thing. One side is documenting, the other side is doing. And that's right. How they've always kind of thought about it. And no, one side is governance and the other side is operations. And so if you think about it that way, it kind of changes your head a little bit because your governance side is what is driving the requirement for the operations side.
So let me ask, in that same vein, do you believe that GRC should fall under the CISO, or should they fall under something like legal or something else?
Oh, you brought up my absolute favorite question. Okay,
because I've heard the debate time and time again, so I'm really curious your opinion on that.
All right, so here's the thing. I am a rebel with a cause because my goal is to be able to pull the CISO out of IT, pull the CISO out of finance, and pull the CISO so that he is either under legal or they are under the CEO, one or the other. Now,
I like option 2. I think the CISO should sit on the board with everybody else. They are a chief information security officer. They
but
have a C-level role. They
mhm.
should be on the board with other C-level roles and hold a spot at the table.
And that's what the SEC ruling was coming to. It was basically saying you must have somebody on the board that has a pulse on cyber. And that's what it's talking about. Now, what it did not say, and it will never say, that they must have a voting position on the board. Now, they can be on the board, which is an important place to be, but it's talking about voting. They don't need to vote. They just need to be part of that board so that their voice can be heard at the top level.
And I don't think many of them even really truly, unless it comes down to budgeting for IT and cyber, I don't think they even want to have that voting power. I mean, at least in my opinion, I want it. If I was a CISO, allow me to speak my piece, but I don't need that voting power. You know what you're doing with your money. If you don't care about security, that's on you. I'm at least going to get my voice heard.
Yeah. Now I've actually gotten into debate of someone they said why put them under legal? I said because that's the perfect place because you can't audit yourself. So I can't be in IT. I can't be in finance. I can't be in anywhere else because I have to audit the organization. True. If I am in legal, everything that goes on with security is tied to legal. So when you're looking at it that aspect, you have more teeth, you have more bite.
I mean, you're not wrong because it's called governance, risk, and compliance.
Mm-hmm.
This is why. So me and a buddy of mine, one of my old coworkers, or it might have been a boss of mine, we had a conversation. And we believe that there should be a technical security person at the board level and a governance person, right? You should have someone that remains technical, that understands the hardware, the software, the things that are going on within the industry. But then you should also have someone that understands the regulations, the frameworks, because they're two different beasts. You can't, it is absolutely impossible to have all the information in both. Impossible.
Now think about it this way. The reason why I say legal is because that's typically where your regulatory compliance lives.
My buddy Christo says it. If they are in legal, they're also restricted.
Well, now they're restricted under the legal governance. However, they can be given full autonomy to audit. And so when they are given autonomy and they have internal audit reporting to them, now here's the other thing: internal audit reporting to the CISO. So now I have audit that is part of that function that is able to go and do those tasks. When we're looking at illegal, the other area that I've seen the debate on is putting them under the strategy officer. So under chief strategy, because if you have an organization, well, think about it this way: if you have an organization that does an abundance of M&A, their sole existence is M&A, you want them at least to have a direct pulse with chief strategy, because anything that's going on has to have their due diligence done. So you either do it documentally or you do it process, one or the other.
So again, Chris comes in with it. Legal will step on your neck. They technically bind your hands on pen testing and ethical hacking to shore up your own systems. Now, I have known CISOs that do not fall under legal that have basically told their directors or managers or whatever when they're getting a pen test done, hey, I want you to run Tenable, Nessus, whatever, some tool, find our weakest systems, and that's what I want tested. I want a leg to stand on when I go and say, hey, this is where we're screwed. You need to fix this. Versus, and Tim, I'm sure you've seen it in your time in the industry. Hey, don't hit those systems because they might shut down. They might da-da-da-da. Like there's always an excuse. Don't hit this subnet or this subnet or this subnet. There are CISOs out there that are like, no, bang on our weakest door. Bring it down. Yeah. If it dies, that gives me a leg, that gives me something to stand on. to say, look, we need to fix this. If we don't fix it, we're screwed.
Yeah, if I have somebody in development or IT that is saying, don't knock on that door, I do a McFly on them and say, McFly, why don't you want me to knock on that door? Why are you worried about that door? Is it that vulnerable that you don't want me touching it? And then they start to do the, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. But
I agree with where your auditors are coming from, because if your auditors, but this is why third-party audits mean so much.
Yep.
Because when you're coming internally, there's too much bureaucracy and politics. When you're coming from an external organization in, then as long as it isn't, and we're not going to get into some of the companies out there that do it, that make friends with the auditors and somehow pass every audit, even though they suck. As long as you have a different third party and you can't have a conflict of interest. I don't know how you verify that. I don't know how it gets validated, but we have to find a way to validate that. Bringing in third-party auditors, you don't run into that issue, because if you have a pen test done and it says, oh yeah, they tested all these IPs. Cool. Let me see your entire IP range. Let me see every IP in your network. Why weren't these tested? But we don't do that. Even as auditors, they don't do that. This is my issue with regulation and framework and the way things are done. And this is where I think the insurance industry, and I've had conversations in the past on the show about the insurance industry, I think this is where they're getting better. Did you do your due diligence? Did you actually attempt to secure every area of your network? Right. I think the insurance industry is the only thing that's going to keep companies more by the book, I guess you would say, and
more honest.
More honest.
All right, so now let's take that, spin it back over to the 171, and we'll tie the two together, and you're going to like how this bow ties. For the new release, it's really looking at how practitioners are protecting the organization's CUI, their controlled and classified information. But here's one of the things that they've done. We've added 3 new families. We've added planning, which would be under PL, system and services acquisition, which is SA, and supply chain risk management, SR. So now adding those in, your supply chain risk management and your systems and services and your planning, what that says is, okay, are you being proactive with your planning with your environment? Are you being proactive with how you're acquiring things to make sure it's being done securely? And are you managing your risk through the entire life cycle of the system? That's what is getting down to. And before they were like hemming around in a couple of other areas. Now they're saying, no, the heck with that. We're going to make actually controls that say you must do this.
So I have one more question on that, and then I got another question here in the comments and some statements from Chris again. But on that note, so we do TPRMs, right? Your third-party risk management, which organizations that care have been doing that, and that deals with supply chain and everything else, right? Because they're all third parties that may or may not have access to the system. Do you think CMMC, because it relies heavily, 2.0 relies heavily on NIST, are they going to have to change again to add in this TPRM, right? The planning, the supply chain, and everything else. Will they have to come out with a 2.1, 2.2, or something like that to address the new revision?
That's actually going to be, when you're looking at it, you're looking at the differences between being a level 1, a level 2, and a level 3 in your certification level. A level 3 is being ratified right now, so that's being addressed. Part of that is waiting for R3 to be released. So when you're looking at that, you're going to be looking at those controls falling into that automatically. So it's going to be, if you're going for a level 2, you're automatically going to have to fall into that, and that already has components in there for CUI as far as risk management in third party, because it says And here's the curveball when you talk about pen testing. It actually asks, has your vendor, has it been doing its annual pen testing at least annually? And the curveball is, have you performed vulnerability scans on your third-party systems, not services, systems?
Oh.
So now there's the curveball where it's saying, and if you're looking at the new release that came out from FedRAMP, and what they're saying there, they're basically saying, you know what, we're going to put more onus back on this, and basically saying, you know what, I know you're looking at this moderate level, but if you want to be moderate level, you have to be 100% compliant.
So that, are we talking internal or external? Because if you're going to go internal, that means you're. I got a bunch of stuff in chat right now, but your Tenable, your Rapid7, your whatever you're using, your Tanium, it now has to tie into your third-party networks. If we're internal, your third-party networks and your internal network, that could pose an issue unless they're just talking external. Then okay, hey, give me freedom to scan your external network, and we're golden.
It is just where your data resides.
Okay.
So if your data resides in this tenant area or in this server area, then wherever that data resides, that's what you have to be able to have access to be able to do pen testing on.
Okay.
So if you have a service provider that's stupid and has everything opened up all the way back through their development channel, yeah, sure, I'll go there all day long. But with all of these service providers that have been hacked lately, that have had that have breaches and everything else,
name it, they've all been crushed.
That is why
one that thought they were special has been absolutely destroyed. Even Mandiant's Twitter got hacked, or X, whatever you want to call it. Yep. Like, no one is immune. Everybody thinks they're immune. There's no immunity. It's your response. You have to have proactive and reactive approaches to everything, which I think is where NIST, CIS benchmarks, CMMC, all these regulations and frameworks come into play. Is it gives you that reactive and proactive approach to being able to do everything.
Right, and that's the difference between looking at like your disaster set. Am I going to have a disaster recovery, or am I going to have a disaster avoidance? And so when you look at that,
I like that thought process. Like that thought process.
So to look at it a little bit differently, and now you look at it and says, okay, I want to be able to avoid as many disasters as I can, but I also want to be able to plan for the things that happen. And that's what we're talking about.
Nature. Your data center gets hit with a tornado. Do you have a backup data center? Like, and this is where cloud and things like that come into play. So that's where your DR. So those things that you can't avoid, that are complete downtime. But I like where you're at with disaster avoidance of, okay, I got a system that gets hit with ransomware. How quickly can we respond, shut it down to where it's just maybe one, at most 5-10 systems, because we know it propagates very quickly. So how quickly can we respond to shut it down, replace those systems, do what we need to do, but we don't lose everything. So I like that thought process.
And not to be confused with like incident response, which that is the procedures. What I'm talking about is setting up a process that if we see something like that happen, you know what? I just put a dome around that.
Yep.
So now I want to be able to research that. And one of the things we did, I did this last year with one of the labs that we ran. And I presented a results at High Trust and one of the other cyber conferences. We did
High Trust is tricky.
Yeah, High Trust is very tricky. But my topic was on AI and privacy.
Oh,
and so what I did
exist. You can't use those two things in the same sentence. They're oxymorons.
They were trying to say that you could, and I proved that they couldn't. So I took an AI versus AI, red team, blue team.
Yeah.
And I said, fine, we're going to set rules that you guys are going to have rules, and you're going to attack each other on those rules. Now, slowly I'm going to peel away from your rules. And so when rules were in place, the attacker won almost every single time. Actually, every single time. When there were no rules in place, the defender won. Now, what's interesting about that is there were 800 devices in the environment. In that environment, what happened is we said there's no rules, do whatever you can to protect yourself.
Okay.
So when we set that, the defender started thinking like an attacker. And now the defender created 800 individual subnets. So every single device was in its own subnet, except for one that was sitting out, and it had several open ports on it. The second that the attacker went after that, it then shut the ports down behind it and captured the attacker. It basically sacrificed its development department to be able to capture the attacker.
But see, that makes sense. Things like that. But again, we don't think like that. And I do. Holy crap, chat's blowing up. We don't think like that, right? We think of, we need to make the blinky lights blink. All these things to work. There needs to be all these rules. Da da da. The moment you eliminate those rule sets and you say, if this happens, shut it down. Mm-hmm. You can allow it out to the internet. That way you can capture whatever data you need, but nothing gets accessed internally. You can no longer port scan, and if you do, it'll say every port is dead. Nothing will work the moment something happens. Then you now have isolated this box. It can talk to the internet all day. It can get ransomware. Anything can happen to it. Who cares? Mm-hmm. People think of it as a honeypot, but no. You do that on all your systems. Every system should be treated that same way, where automatically it gets isolated from the internal network. Go ahead, talk to the internet all day. I will let you run. I may have my CEO out of business for, I don't know, a day, a week, whatever it may be. I'll give him another computer just so he can keep working, and we can allow this to happen. That is where we fail as blue teams, is we don't allow that enough. We try to limit and put rules in place, and but I think this is where GRC comes into play. They only have so much pull. They only have so much things they can do. Blue teams don't exist without GRC. And I say that, I will 100% stand on that. You will not have a security team without GRC, because GRC sets the regulations, the frameworks, the standards, everything you need to abide by. But, and about that wallet, and YouTube said it earlier, until something is broken into, those purse strings are held tight and security does not get its funding. So I don't give a damn what GRC does. I don't give a damn what the blue team does. I don't give a damn what the red team does. Until until your network is compromised, the CFO, the CEO, the COO, the whoever will be like, nah, you don't need money. You're working great. You're doing all good things.
So think about it this way. We actually have gotten organizations to pony up cash by finding peers in their specific industry that have gotten hacked of somebody they know. And then saying, you know what? You need to take a look at this. And then sending a note over to that individual and say, hey, you know what? I gotta ask of you. Would you just go on record and have a conversation with some of your good friends and let them know you need to put some more money into protection and into your cyber world? And so they said, well, sure, we'll do that. Yeah. So that's what we did. We spent a lot of time putting that together, and we had several CEOs that said, yeah, I got a call from this guy that said I should probably shore things up a little better. Yeah, you think? So
yeah, I mean, it happens. It happens all the time. And I want to delve deeper into this, because actually that who you know thing will come into play here, even where I work. There's a lot of work we do on the back end. But I want to hit some of these comments that'll go back a little bit in the conversation. So Chris said, legal will flare up with things. but such and such law or federal regulation states. And he's right. Certain companies will be like, oh no, you don't have to do this, or you shouldn't do this because of this and this and this red tape, or because federal law says you don't have to do this. He's not wrong.
Right. Yeah, but now federal law may say, okay, let's say I sell this, all right, and now I'm selling this at outs, and I'm typically only selling it to the U.S. Next thing you know, now I got a channel in Canada, I got another one in the U.K. Guess what? I just expanded my regulatory compliance.
Yes.
Outside, or I'm selling it on the web. Now, how am I going to say I'm only going to sell it to IP addresses that are in the US? No, I can sell it to anybody at that point. Now I've got that other problem. So when you're looking at that, states are coming up with their own privacy rules and their own cyber rules like mad.
Look at what Cali did. Cali's privacy rules are look, anybody who knows me knows me. I am not a fan of California.
Right.
But they are doing they are going leaps and bounds towards the EU's way of doing privacy. And I respect that very much. From a cybersecurity perspective, I respect it on a whole different level.
Well, they're following the same rules of Canada and then Singapore, how they've done theirs there. So it's this trend that's going around in that circle. But in that same concept, where you're looking at it, if you go and look up and say, just go on to Monster or LinkedIn or anything else, and look at the job descriptions for compliance officers now. Most of the compliance officers that are out there that they're asking for, they're asking for JDs. They're asking for attorneys.
Yeah.
But attorneys that have cybersecurity background.
How much schooling does that take, though? Right? Because you got to think about it. A lawyer, in and of itself, takes how many years? Plus, you got to be able to pass the bar, and because there's no federal bar, you got to be able to pass it in each individual state. You can't just practice federally. Why would we allow anything federally? Even the Second Amendment is state by state by state by state. Everything is just by state. Which, okay, for certain things I get, but for practicing law, just learn your laws. If you're going to a new state, if you don't know the state laws, that's on you, homie. You shouldn't need a new certification and a whole new test just to be able to practice there. I digress. I'm not a lawyer, so it is what it is. But you look at these things, and I have thought about it. What are our cyber laws? At what point do bullies become responsible for suicide? At what points do bullies become responsible for stalking and things like that? And statutory rape and all these other things that are out there. There's no cyber law that protects us, that protects the other person. And so it's all interpretation. And so do we need cybersecurity and lawyers to finally figure out a way to mesh and make laws that make sense? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But it hasn't happened because we got too many people that don't know cyber still making laws or trying to interpret laws about things that they've never touched.
Well, if you look at it, it gets to be extremely political. It gets to be extremely hard on companies when they're looking at developing these laws. They come and say, okay, fine. If you have a breach, you have to notify everybody within a certain amount of time.
And the SEC came down on what, 2 companies now about that, or at least one.
Yeah, and it's not just them on the federal side. When you look at a CMMC and you look at the guidance there, they actually have totally different rulings there for companies. And I'm glad we kind of cycled back around into those conversations, because here is something that is going to make everybody just stand on their ear. The new release that has come out for CMMC guidance and the new guidance that is coming down from FedRAMP and from NIST is saying you're a prime contractor. You have a contract with the DoD or another agency. Any of your subcontractors must also fully comply with everything that's in the contract. It's always said that. But now it's saying they have to have the certification for CMMC just as you do as a subcontractor. So now I have to use subcontractors that are vetted and have completed their CMMC certification. By 2026, January
This is why I
2026.
refuse to work for anything government.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, here's the thing. Try to find a company out there that is not working and is selling to either a federal or a state agency.
Oh, it's almost impossible.
Yeah,
Even from
that's what it's talking
an
about.
MSSP level, they're trying. And to look at it, I understand. I get it.
All right, hang on that. I got a refill. Hang on.
Hey, you're good. I just keep grabbing beers out the fridge. I restocked a little bit. I don't know if it'll last me through the night. I might have to go get more tomorrow, but I did restock.
I got to head back up to Buffalo Trace, get another bottle.
There you
go. So
I got some Basil Hayden here, dark rye. I haven't touched it yet.
That's good. Good stuff.
But yeah, I look at these things and it bothers me because we also have to look at the fact that our government is stupid. Here in the US anyways, our government's a bunch of idiots. They don't know cyber. As many people as they've tried to bring in, they've tried to change things. They don't give them the freedom, whatever the case may be. Bunch of idiots. They don't know regulation. They don't know what they're doing. The laws are trash. They have been absolutely horrendous at putting anything in place cyber oriented. And as someone who's worked in the PCI environment, the government environment, and all these other places, I've worked in quite a few that have dealt with quite a vast array of regulations and frameworks. So many are taken advantage of because companies are still finding loopholes.
Yep.
If lawyers are the ones helping write this documentation, which we know they are because that's half of the government anyways and half of these organizations, why are they allowing so many loopholes that just say have a firewall and log, but we don't care about your roles?
Well, I mean, if you look at the EU and their the AI ruling that they came up with, if you sit down and read the entire thing, which I have to read these things all the way through, you almost laugh out loud. But it's almost just like the one for the FDA. It's almost like the one that is for your USAID and the one for that is now our US Bill of Rights one that they're trying to come up with. It'll say we want to make sure that we're putting guardrails on things to protect the consumers and to protect individuals. But also we want to make sure not to limit you on your ability to be able to do development. And so it's saying one thing and hopping on the potato and doing the other. So when you read the whole thing.
All right, we're going to keep going into this, but I do want to. Chris has made a lot of valid points. One, the CISO needs their own autonomy. Your CISO should have autonomy throughout the organization. They should be on the board. This, at the third, there should be no ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think me and you can both agree on that, Tim.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing is, and he came up with a follow-up. Every C-level exec, COO, CFO, CEO, etc., all have their own autonomy. They all have their own votes on the board. Your CISO should be in the same role, same position, same as your CIO, your CTO. They're all on the board. They all have votes. Why are we limiting a CISO?
Yeah, well, because the CISO is not a position that was formed by a board. A CISO role was something that was formed out of security, and saying that we needed to be able to have this level of, and it's almost like trying to force your way up to the board instead of saying the board created this position and we're now putting it in. If the boards had created that position from the get-go, then we wouldn't be having this argument. It would just be straight out, and we'd always have that on the board.
But if you're going to have that position come about, why not put it at the same level of your CIO, your CTO, your CFO, your C? It has a C. If you don't want it to be a C-level position, that's fine. Maybe we don't make it a regulation, right? Because when you look at it, a lot of these C-level positions come from regulatory, from like the federal government or state government of, hey, on your board, for people who have voting rights, this is what you need to have. Okay, maybe you don't have that. Then make them a security director. Get rid of the C. But the moment that C is there, The moment you have chief information security officer, chief anything, they should be on the board of directors, have a right to vote, and have a say in how things go.
Yeah, and so I've actually had some organizations, we don't want them to be a C level. I said, fine, make it an H. And they're looking at me and said, what? Fine, making them head of information security. But why don't we take information out of it and just make them head of security?
Because I think you. So here's the problem with that. I don't disagree, but I don't agree either. Information security is.
You'll agree with me with another beer.
Information security is. This is where things get tricky, because cybersecurity and information security are two different things. People don't realize that. Information security is just security of the data, right? Security of the information. Cybersecurity, and again, this is my viewpoint. Some people may think different. Far be it from me to tell people how to think about this. But cybersecurity is the security of the technology, not the data. Cybersecurity, even though people are correlated to data, no. The security of the technology, physical security can come into play a little bit, but that's mostly your locks, your things like that get automated, your IoT, your OT, anything that has technology in its name falls under cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. So a CISO, if you take away that I, now has cybersecurity, information security, and physical security.
Correct. Which are all part of NIST.
True. Very true. Actually, it's all part of a lot of frameworks, right?
Yep.
So do you feel that there should be one chief or one executive on the board that controls all of security?
Yes. And here's why. If you take information out, then your CIO and your CTO aren't arguing to try to put them under them. Because now I don't care about information.
Okay.
I care about all security of the company. So now when I'm saying all security, now I actually also have the capability to be able to make sure all the data centers and all the facilities are safe and protected.
I see your point, and John Good makes a point here, and I was going to make this point, but I'm glad he said it too. So let me get to this question, and John, we'll get back to you. I love your statement, so John, don't worry. But Misha states, and she always comes in with questions. Do you think GRC is handled correctly in every area, like from healthcare to government to everyday companies? Do you think it's handled correctly?
Oh, absolutely not. In fact,
I was going to agree.
Well, here's the thing. Not that it's not handled correctly, that it is handled differently. Because from healthcare to insurance, you're going to have different regulations that you have to fall under, and different.
I trust CMMC, whatever the case, PCI.
Now, if I shift over to manufacturing, there's a big difference between manufacturing a tire, which falls me under the TSA and transportation, versus now I'm developing I'm an ABB and I'm developing the power transformers. Oh, now I'm under Department of Energy instead.
Do you think there should be the same? So this is where I have an issue. I think all data should be secure at the highest level.
Correct.
Right? Do you feel there should be different regulations and/or frameworks based on vertical, right? Power, health, gas, whatever the case may be, because they all have their own different regulations, their own verticals, their own way of securing things. Do you think there should be a different way of securing them or a different way to audit them based on vertical, or do you think they should all have the exact same security measures?
All right, this gets down into I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, the show Young Sheldon.
I haven't watched it. I watched Big Bang Theory. I love Big Bang Theory. I haven't watched Young Sheldon, not yet.
So go and do a search. Zero does not exist on YouTube. It is the most. You will look at it and just go like, "Oh, you're correct. It doesn't exist." But when you're looking at it, you're going to your statement. Now, GRC when I'm looking at GRC, the GRC actually exists,
Right.
or am I looking at it as such that I have to take it and split it down, because sometimes you have a risk officer, sometimes you have a compliance
Yeah.
officer, sometimes you have a governance
CROs,
officer. You break those
CCOs,
down,
all those.
but they're all responsible for ones and zeros in most cases
Mm-hmm.
when you're looking at the information side. But if I'm looking at risk and compliance and governance in their true forms, now I'm looking at not just information security or security. Now I'm looking at business operations. Now I'm looking at
Okay.
COO and CEO and chief strategy and legal. Now GRC covers all those.
Which they should.
That's correct. So now instead of just looking at a specific, say I'm in healthcare, I'm only going to look at HIPAA. I'm in this, I'm only going to look at NIST, or I'm manufacturer, I'm only going to look at ISO. Now, why are we looking at multiple frameworks when we literally, but it gets down to which one caters to our specific industry.
Why does it need to cater? Why can't it just be about protecting data?
Exactly. But when you're trying to sell this to specific boards, that in healthcare, you may just have a board of all doctors. And so now you're having to sell them on stuff that they don't
That is where
understand.
I think I will always disagree with the way we run things as a society, because it's worldwide. Is that data is data? And Misha just said not all data is the same. Yes, all data is the same. To me, all data should be kept private unless otherwise stated. I want to release this. All data about you personally, social, birth date, name, address, your hair color, I don't care what it is about you. It should be held private, which means it should not be able to be released to the public unless you choose to do so. Hence, the dumbass surveys that give away all your security questions on Facebook. Guess what? Your dumbass gave away all those answers. That's on you, homie, not on me. But I digress. I think all data is private and should be private. It should all be considered secure. It should all be held to the same regulation and standard. That is my opinion.
Yeah. So I that's why I like to play the 7 degrees of IP. Or PII. So when I'm looking at the 7 degrees of PII, I can always get back down to that the data is always going to need to be private, because I can always find a way to get back to that. So and I can jump on a 4-hour conversation about that one. So that gets into a whole nother.
So I do want to bring this up from John though, and he's right. And this is where I think why we should have CIOs, CTOs, like all these people should have board. Not all CISOs are equipped to be CSOs.
Correct.
I think he's absolutely correct.
Now I'm going to take his statement and turn it on its head. Not all CISOs are necessarily CISOs. You will have some CISOs that are IT directors, that are doing IAM and they're doing other things, but and so they want to have that C-level title. So yeah, I'm going to be a CISO now. Okay, yeah, give me your credentials for a CISO, because you're nowhere close to it. Yep. You can be a director of information security, but that does not make you a CISO.
Yep.
So yeah, on his statement, yes, I can also take that in the other direction where it says they're not equal to a CISO.
But to me, I get what he's saying and I get what you're saying. Here's my thing, right? When you're looking at C-level anything, they're all friends. Me personally, and this is a personal opinion, people can disagree with me all they want. I don't fucking care. Go ahead, disagree. I think if you cannot hand down a company as a CEO to someone in your family, it can be an in-law, it could be an actual child, it could be a spouse, whatever the case may be, a cousin, I don't care. You should not be able to hire another CEO. And the reason I say that is you built that company from scratch. That is your baby. You care about how it runs. That next CEO cares about making money for themselves. Mm-hmm. That's all they're ever going to care about. Because to get to that level, if you're going to jump from CEO to CEO to CEO to CEO, You just care about making more and more money. You don't care about the company itself. I will always have a problem with that. To me, I don't think that should be allowed. And people can call it nepotism. You can call it whatever the fuck you want. Me personally, I don't think that you should be allowed to do that.
Yeah, and that's what I say. Looking at when Belichick, when they were on the conversation about this yesterday, saying that should his son take over the role as head coach, kind of thing, and I'm like, no, because you need to bring on your whole team that are under you, that are going to be loyal to you. So and that's why every coach builds their own team. When you're having a CISO that comes in and they're inheriting somebody else's garbage, now you've got a different scenario. And now I've got to go and not only identify the ones that aren't going to work, but I need to be able to massage those and build those that are actually going to be sufficient in securing the environment from a standpoint.
And so I have a thing about this, right? So about that wallet, he says something that's it's funny but true. Sell the company and keep it moving, right? Sell it to something bigger, somebody that owns something, and just make your money and leave. And he is about that wallet is very much financially sound in how things should go. So I love what he says there. For me, I look at things. I've been fired from a job because I was still friends with the manager that got fired.
Mm-hmm.
It's happened.
Oh, yeah.
People they could argue, disagree. I'm not going to name the company. You want to do some research? I can have at it. But yes, I've been fired because I was still friends with the person that hired me. I moved to another company to work for that person. I don't care. But I do agree with you're going to bring in your people. You're going to bring in people that you can trust and rely on and know are going to get the job done. Because how hard is it to actually you do interviews and you're like, I hope this dude works out. He sounds great. Talk to her. I've done this, whatever the case may be. But now you're still flying blind. You don't know. Whereas people you know that you've worked with time and time again over years, you're going to take. Yeah. I will take a lot of veterans personally over people that aren't. Why? Because I know when it comes down to rank structure, I can tell them to do something. They're just going to get up and do it. It's ingrained in them to just do it.
Yeah, our CISO is a former Marine as well. And he basically, he was an interrogator in the Marines. So he's perfect.
Oh, so he worked for a 3-letter agency, but doesn't want to tell you he worked for a 3-letter agency.
Yeah, well, he really can't talk about his trips to Russia. But when you're talking about stuff like that, he, as with we always went to that same pool for individuals, because when we're starting something straight out, I want to make sure I have individuals that I can trust to get it done. But if I'm going into a scenario like I do now, and I'm going to an XYZ company to do an audit, I'm bringing individuals that I know will get the job done and knock it out in the shortest period of time. Most all of them are former military. One of the guys I used to work for, he had a small company. He was a former Army Ranger, and he actually had his battle buddy as one of his partners. So when you're looking at that, their drive was specifically to make sure that they were doing everything they could to protect companies when they were doing their scanning and their vulnerability work. So they were still having that same mentality of, you know what, once you defend a country, you always defend a country. You just change that mindset to defending a company. And that's kind of why I'm very pro on that.
Yeah. So I got 2 questions for you. All right. And we're going to end the episode with this. I mean, I'll come back on and we'll talk, but I'm going to send you solo. I got 2 questions for you. First one comes from About That Wallet. Second one comes from myself. From About That Wallet, what type of education or training would you feel would be best for a great CISO? So if a CISO were to exist, education and training for them. Second question I have for you, and this one's from me personally. what advice would you give to anybody brand new breaking into this industry? Because this show is all about helping those trying to break in. It's not about me, you, anybody that's been in it for a hot minute. It's about those trying to kind of find their foothold and get in there. What advice would you give them? So answer about that wallet and then answer my question and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, so the training or education, the first thing right out the gate on the education side is when I'm looking at a chief security officer, I want somebody who has a business acumen, who basically knows about the business operations, and maybe I don't want an MBA because I just don't think that's anyway. I got opinions about that. But I want somebody who has been there, done that. I mean, in the military, we would say, I want an officer that came up through the ranks, didn't just go to OCS and then came right in the door. So I want somebody who's been there, done that, and knows how to protect an organization, who has worked in that industry long enough to be able to know how to protect it. Secondly, on the backside of that, as far as training, you want to make sure that they get the proper training. You can say certifications. So if they're a CISA or if they're a CISSP, that's great and everything. That's teaching them about process. But when we're looking at actually training, the training they need to get more than anything is going to be on operational resiliency and being able to make sure that they're in compliance with their control standards. So take the training and spin it in another direction. Not necessarily so much about training. What groups should somebody be part of to make sure they're always staying on top of compliance? I would say first right out the gate, if either ISACA or ISSA, there's a great organization to be part of. You can do InfraGard, which is another one I'm part of. It's a great organization. So, but get plugged in with those, because that's going to get you a couple of really awesome things. One, it's going to get you connected up with the information for how to do what you do, and free, instead of having to go out and pay to get all these certifications and everything else. Now, flip that around. Now I got peers that I can talk with and go over, and I can hear about things as they're happening, so I can make sure I'm protecting the stuff. So when I'm looking at this, you want to try to look at it from two angles. Education is great and everything else. You know what? Have a degree in computer science, or have a degree in information management. But I mean, if you have a degree in engineering and you want to shift over that way, make sure you're going into that realm from a different standpoint. Nobody just comes out the door and says, "Hey, I'm going to be a chief security officer." You need to be able to cut your teeth a little bit in that industry to be able to get there. But having that clear direction, you know what? Get on a SOC, spend time in a SOC, get on with a organization that is doing consulting, which is a fabulous way to be able to learn a whole bunch of different things at one time. I would say get yourself dabbling in those to be able to make sure that you're going to be progressing. So other than that, I mean, that's pretty much what I did. When I left that IBM, I went to work for a consulting company. And from that point forward, I've loved it, because here's the thing about it. My day is different every time I start up. It's not the same old thing every single day. I've got different problems, different challenges, and everything else from one extreme to another. And what that does is that allows me to be able to answer questions and to be able to be, shall we say, very deep in a lot of topics, because I've experienced them firsthand in multiple industries. Not only the fact that I've actually started a couple of companies and sold them. So I've been there, done that enough to be able to say, you know what, it's a good direction.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's, from my eyes, a CSO, to go back to the first question from about that wallet, a CSO, if you get it far enough into security, especially from a military standpoint, if you come from a military background, and so cybersecurity and military, you learn both sides. You learn the physical security aspect, and if you're in a cybersecurity job, you learn the cybersecurity aspect. So that's a good way to learn it. From a purely civilian perspective, somebody that's never served, maybe police force, this is why I stand by a lot of public service, because you learn a lot of these things while in service, whether it's police, firemen, you name it, any type of public service. They will a lot of times teach you the physical security aspect. And then you learn the cybersecurity through college, through YouTube University, through whatever the case may be, and then coming up in the industry. Physical security isn't that hard to learn. I think it's a lot easier than cybersecurity. Physical security doesn't change, right? Doors, fences, walls, fireproof places, this other third, HVAC ventilation, things like that. And when you go through your CISP, you have to know all of them. So if you are going through your CISSP, you have to understand physical security. You have to understand cybersecurity. You have to understand information security. You have to know a mile wide and an inch deep.
Yeah.
If you can do that, great. If not, you got more learning to do. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
So saying that, look, I love you all. Again, if you're on YouTube, Super Chats are always appreciated. If you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. Look, I've been running the thing down below all episode of how you can support the channel. It's Buy Me a Coffee, it's PayPal, it's Cash App, it's buying merchandise like this amazing hoodie right here. I'm just saying, you can buy a Security Happy Hour hoodie if you really, really want to. But otherwise, look, I love you all. You're all amazing. You're all my warriors. You're all my family. And I want you to remember that. Now, take care. Enjoy your weekend. Please take some damn PTO. We all deserve it. Every last one of us. You deserve some PTO. Take some time off. And I will see you all next week with another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour.